Kane kept a canary outside. She was clamoring for a legitimate status. To appease her, Kane gave her the role that I had fought tooth and nail for. He was certain that I wouldn't divorce him, and moreover, at the press conference for the new drama, he ostentatiously put on couple rings with her. During this live broadcast watched by thousands of people, countless media cameras were pointed at me, waiting to see me make a fool of myself. But I calmly took out the divorce agreement. Kane smashed the table on the spot and cut off all my brand collaborations. He even boasted that within a month, I would surely come crawling back to apologize and beg for reconciliation. However, later, it was he who drove his car recklessly on a rainy night and stood at my doorstep, drenched from head to toe, begging for reconciliation. The man who had just returned to the country blocked the doorway and smiled at him faintly, saying, "Ex-husband, stop shouting. She's too tired to hear you." When the heroine of the movie, as before, was officially announced, my studio was in an uproar. What's going on? They changed the actress without a word? Why didn't anyone inform us in advance? For this shooting, we've cleared our schedules for the next 3 months, Sally. The agent Sally's face darkened as she dialed the movie production team's number, but was put off with just a few words from the other side. For this matter, it would be better if Luna herself called to ask brother you. Kane was the biggest investor in, as before, and also Luna's, husband. Immediately, everyone in the studio looked at me, their eyes urging me. I lowered my head to look at the name of the heroine, and my fingertips turned icy cold. Vivian. She was rumored to be the canary that Kane kept outside. Before this, I hadn't really taken it seriously. After being married for so long, even if Kane didn't care about me, he hadn't done such an absurd thing out in the open. But this time, to appease the canary who was asking for a legitimate status, Kane gave away the leading role that I had fought so hard for to her. He knew full well how important this role was to me. The phone rang 3 times, but still no one answered. Sally patted my shoulder and comforted me, saying, "Go back and ask him properly. You sacrificed so much to get this role. There's no need to lose it just out of spite." But Kane didn't come home that night. I sat on the sofa, waiting from evening until early morning before Kane finally came back slowly. He gave me a casual glance, with no intention of explaining. I took the last sip of my tea and looked up at him, asking, why was the actress changed? "I just changed her because I wanted to." Kane didn't care at all. After saying that, he tilted his head to look at me and smiled, asking, "What, are you angry?" Kane always knew how to infuriate me in an understated way. He walked over, bent down slightly to look at me, with obvious mockery in his eyes, and curiously asked, "Miss Sue, who can fight for everything on her own, would still care about just a leading role?" The sarcasm in his words was evident. Kane had once held my chin and told me, "Luna, as long as you please me, I can promote you to any position you want." Now, he was showing me through his actions what a wrong decision it was for me to reject him back then. In the past, I wouldn't have bothered to argue with Kane, but this time it was different. As before, was too important to me. It held all the beautiful memories between me and that person. Remembering Sally's words, I swallowed the surging emotions and said softly, "I've been preparing for this role for months." "I know," Kane interrupted me casually. My eyelashes trembled as I looked up at him. "Do you want to get this role back? What can be done?" Kane looked down at me and chuckled, "But I don't want to give it to you." The conversation ended on a sour note. Sally came to me more than once. I lay on the sofa in silence for a while, and when I spoke, my voice was a bit hoarse. "I'm not being spiteful. Kane knows how much I care. He did it on purpose." Sally's words came to an abrupt halt. She looked up at me and, after a long while, murmured, "What kind of a couple is this?" Yes, what kind of a couple were we? It was originally a marriage of convenience. Kane had status and wealth, and everyone thought that I was the one who shamelessly clung to a powerful person. But no one knew that it was Kane who had promised to love me word by word back then. Before I could agree, the Luna family privately nodded and sent me to Kane's side, but gradually, Kane seemed to deliberately make things difficult for me out of spite. When drunk, he questioned me over and over again, Luna, am I really not worthy of your love? Without me, could the Luna family be what it is today? Isn't pleasing me the usual trick of the Luna family? He liked looking down at me when I was in a sorry state. As if with pity and in an alluring way, he whispered, beg me, Luna. He knew that I wouldn't ask for help from others. And he was certain that for the sake of the Luna family, I wouldn't propose divorce. So he humiliated me time and time again, watching me lose all my dignity in front of everyone. Kane made a condition. If I could stand at the door with a cake and wait to take him home at the dinner party the day after tomorrow, he would give this role back to me. Sally's face looked ugly. The day after tomorrow, all the important people in the circle will be there. Making you stand at the door, isn't that humiliating you? Even if he clearly wants to give the role to Vivian, he doesn't have to treat you like this. Sally advised me that it was okay to give up this role, but I still agreed. Is this movie really that important to you? I nodded gently, yes. It's very important. Unfortunately, it rained heavily that day. I held an umbrella and stood at the entrance of the dinner party. Constantly, there were gazes falling on me, and whispers never ceased. I heard that she's trying to please brother you. Why did she put on such a high and mighty attitude before? With no status or background, she can't avoid using some underhanded means. How embarrassing. But what a pity. I lowered my eyes and watched the raindrops form a line and drip down along the edge of the umbrella. I waited until midnight before suddenly realizing what the pity in their words meant. Kane didn't show up at this dinner party at all. I was drenched like a drowned rat and became the laughingstock of the whole party. My fingertips were trembling with cold. I couldn't get through to Kane on the phone, but I received a text message from an unknown number. I heard that you've been waiting all night. I'm really sorry. Brother, you flew to City S to celebrate my birthday with me. Hee. There was a picture attached which was a photo of a beautiful birthday cake. I stared at it for a few seconds, threw the cake away and turned to walk back. Kane never returned my calls, but he updated a Weibo post. He deleted it quickly, but it was still screenshot by someone. In the romantic Ferris wheel, through the glass reflection, two people could be vaguely seen kissing. Sally was furious and cursed Kane for being a brute. News in the entertainment circle always spread quickly, and I became a joke that everyone would laugh at when mentioned. Even so, I still didn't get this role back. Kane looked at me and smiled with his eyes narrowed. Luna, even if you had really gone there, I might not have given you the role back anyway. After all, I didn't promise. His tone was as casual as always. I felt a chill run through me and stared at him fixedly. Probably my exasperated look pleased Kane as he bowed his head and smiled even more happily. Luna, it's been a long time since I saw you like this. But the role has been decided this time and can't be changed. But I won't let you wait for nothing. How about this? He leaned closer to me, his voice carrying a smile as he spoke. You can choose any script you like in the future. Kane. I suddenly interrupted him. I looked up and stared at him for a few seconds. I calmly said, let's get divorced. Kane's smile froze at the corners of his mouth. His gaze fell on me with an inquiring look. Didn't anyone tell you? He raised his hand and his fingertip stroked across my neck, that some jokes can't be made casually, The project that the Luna family is currently negotiating about, I can make it vanish with just one word. As if to confirm it, just after he finished speaking, a message from the Luna family popped up. I closed my eyes. There was no need to look. I knew that the message would be asking me to please the Kane family. Kane looked down at me and the smile returned to his eyes. He opened his mouth, his voice soft but very certain. Luna. You can't live without me. After that day, Kane doted on Vivian as if to take revenge. Whatever she wanted, Kane would get it for her. Vivian's text messages came from time to time. Brother, you gave me a limited edition bracelet. I heard it's the style you've always wanted. I'll take a picture and show it to you, thanks to you, otherwise I wouldn't have met such a nice brother you. By the way, you don't have to wait anymore. Brother, you insisted on accompanying me to watch the fireworks. These numbers changed one after another, as if they could never be blocked completely. The better Kane treated Vivian, the more comments about me there were online. They spread like wildfire and kept fermenting. Thank goodness, Luna has finally brought about her own downfall. What's a marriage of convenience? True love is what matters, okay? Aunt Luna, when are you going to make way for our Vivian? Divorce? How could she bear to? Everyone was convinced that I wouldn't be willing to divorce. So was Kane. He snatched my phone away, stared at the comments on the screen for a few seconds, then looked up at me and smiled. So you do care? Then why can't you just give in to me? He lowered his head and leaned closer, his alcohol-scented breath wafting by my ears. Luna, just give in and beg me, say something nice that I like to hear. Whatever Vivian has, I can give it to you. I looked up at him quietly. That night when I said I wanted a divorce, Kane didn't take it seriously at all. I end this whole drama. Kane was always behind the scenes. He knew better than anyone else how much influence public opinion had on me, but he just wanted to watch me lose all my dignity, watch me be isolated and helpless. Watch me beg him, but I wouldn't. I reached out and pushed Kane away, saying, "Don't come near me. You're too dirty." Kane froze on the spot, his face turning pale. When the Luna family called again, I finally went back to the Luna family. I pushed the door open and the room was full of people. Seeing me, they didn't look friendly at all. Apparently, they were very dissatisfied with Vivian's appearance. My father Victor spoke reproachfully, "Such a simple thing as pleasing Kane, and you can't even do it properly. What has the online public opinion become like now?" I laughed and said, "Do you also know what the online comments about the Luna family are like?" Victor's face darkened. "Anyway, we can't lose this project. You can't make any mistakes with the Kane family." I nodded. "The project won't be lost, but it's the last time." Victor, who had just let out half of his breath, took it back in again. "What do you mean by the last time?" "Over the years, the Luna family has reaped a lot of benefits. It's time for them to learn to stand on their own feet. This project is my last tolerance. After it's done, I'll divorce Kane." Before she could finish speaking, Victor slapped her without hesitation. "Who do you think you are? Without the Kane family, could you be where you are today?" She turned her head aside, feeling a stinging pain all over her face. But she ignored it, turned her head to stare at Victor, and calmly finished the last half of the sentence with her eyes raised. She didn't listen to what they said later, nor did she want to. "From now on, the Luna family will have nothing to do with me at all." She didn't listen to what they said later, nor did she want to. The Luna family had supported her all these years, and now that the project was over, they were completely even. After being muddled for so many years, she could finally see the end in sight. After going out, she opened her eyes wide and looked up with great effort. The sunlight was so dazzling that it brought tears to her eyes. After a long while, the sound of a message on her mobile phone pulled her thoughts back. News about Justin, the heir of the Justin family, was trending on the hot search. Justin. She stared at the name and in a trance, she was drawn into a vortex of memories. On the night of the 8th, she had a dream. I end the dream. It was a quiet and warm afternoon. After reading the last page of the book, she raised her head and waved to the young man in the sunlight. "In the future, if I become an actress, I want to play the female lead in this book." The young man squinted his eyes and asked why. She threw herself into his arms and looked up to tell him, "I like this story. The male and female leads in the story will be together forever." The young man burst out laughing. "But outside the story, we will be too. I will also watch our Luna become a great actress and the protagonist of this book." But later, it was she who pushed him away with her own hands. On a rainy day, he grasped the handle of the umbrella and smiled sarcastically. "Yeah, I was never the male lead." She woke up suddenly, her forehead covered with fine beads of sweat. The dark room was like an airtight net, tightly wrapping her up, making it hard for her to breathe. On the day when the Luna family's project was finalized, it happened to be the new product launch conference of Kane's company. That day was unprecedentedly lively. Once the rumor that Kane would bring Vivian to attend got out, several media outlets rushed over upon smelling the gossip of the wealthy families. Before leaving, Sally tugged at the cuff of her sleeve. "Do you really have to go?" At such a formal occasion, if Kane really brought Vivian, he was determined to make her look bad. If she went at this time, she would be asking for humiliation, she nodded. Sally opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but the next second, her face suddenly became extremely ugly. She looked down at Sally's screen. At the live broadcast of the conference, Kane really brought Vivian there. The two of them stood together, and even the colors and styles of their clothes were carefully matched. The media, who loved to watch the excitement, took a close-up shot of the couple rings on their fingers. The media instantly went wild. The barrage in the live broadcast room came one after another. President Kane really brought her here. Couple rings, that's too much. Is he so sure that Luna won't file for divorce by doing this? How could she divorce? You know, the Luna family. She didn't continue watching and went directly to find Kane. As soon as she arrived at the scene, many eyes immediately fell on her, full of a strong sense of watching a good show. Vivian smiled and explained, Luna, don't misunderstand. I was the one who pestered President Kane to buy the same style of rings. Oh, she glanced casually. This seems to be the one that Kane bought for me and I didn't want, so it was left unused. If you like it, just wear it. Vivian's face turned pale in an instant. Kane looked up, a bit surprised. He lowered his voice. What? Finally willing to come to me on your own initiative? She nodded. I do have something to ask you. He suddenly lowered his head and smiled. Luna, I told you that you can't live without me. But it's a bit late to come and beg me now. From the moment Vivian showed up, she was destined to become the laughingstock of the whole city. This was exactly what Kane wanted to see. Humiliating her was his usual trick. Kane's voice was neither too loud nor too soft, just enough for everyone in the venue to hear. Following his words, the gazes that fell on her became even more contemptuous. Luna really came to beg. I really want to see on the spot what she will say. These words reached the ears of both her and Kane. He curved his eyebrows even more and changed his posture, ready to wait quietly for her to speak. She calmly looked at him. In full view of everyone, she took out the divorce agreement from her bag. It's not too late, she handed over the signing pen. If there's no problem, just sign it. Kane looked over with a smile. The moment his eyes fell on the agreement, the smile on his lips suddenly froze, the noisy atmosphere at the scene suddenly froze. It was quiet all around. What do you mean? Didn't you come to me to give in? Kane gritted his teeth and said word by word, Luna, do you really dare to divorce me? It was rare to see Kane like this. He stared at the divorce agreement for a long while, then laughed in anger. Don't you think that the project relying on the Kane family is the only one for you? I'll give you time to think it over carefully. Kane put the divorce agreement back into her hand. Luna, if you take it back now, I can pretend that nothing happened. No need to think about it. She looked at him quietly, her voice calm. Just sign it. Kane was certain that she wouldn't leave him for the Luna family. She was also certain that a person as proud as him wouldn't refuse in front of everyone. Whispers gradually rose from the audience. Media cameras were constantly aimed at Kane. This kind of on-site gossip really whetted everyone's appetite. Kane glanced around the scene, and his face grew darker and darker. He smashed the table on the spot, and the joints of his fingers holding the signing pen turned white. Fine. Luna, it won't be long. You'll come back begging me like a dog. The news of the divorce instantly became a hot search topic. The Luna family came to her faster than she had expected. The moment Victor raised his wrist, she took a step back to avoid the slap on her face. Victor's face turned pale, and he lost his temper with her in a fit of rage. Because he was afraid of offending Kane, he threw all the most vicious words in his life at her. She stood on the overpass, with people coming and going around her. She quietly watched Victor's frantic behavior. Instead of venting your anger on me, you might as well think about the future of the Luna family. I won't be a sacrificial lamb again. Victor, who was raging impotently, left. Even long after he left, she still stood there. When night fell, she sat on the overpass with a few bottles of wine and drank one mouthful after another. It was completely dark, and it started to rain. The autumn rain was especially cold. But not a single drop fell on her. An umbrella was quietly held over her head. The fingers on the umbrella handle were beautiful just like they were many years ago. Her eyelashes trembled. Half a mouthful of wine got stuck in her throat and she couldn't say a word. I thought Justin would never want to see me again. Of the countless reunion scenes I had imagined, I never thought that we would sit quietly under the overpass drinking wine. The rain was ticking. Neither of them spoke. After drinking until midnight when she was feeling dizzy, she heard him say softly, "You're not having a good life." She lowered her eyes and the fingertips grasping the wine bottle trembled. Justin moved closer, his voice hoarse. "Why don't you dare to look at me?" I was the one who pushed him away with my own hands, so I shouldn't have expected anything more, but perhaps it was the alcohol working, or maybe I missed this person in front of me too much. Facing this face, I just couldn't bring myself to push him away again. She froze, watching helplessly as Justin's lips came down. His lips were warm and she shed tears during this kiss. When she regained consciousness, she was taken to Justin's home. The rain was pattering. The atmosphere in the room was indescribably amorous. The soft gasps blended with the sound of the rain. She tightly grasped everything she could hold, afraid that it was all a dream. The rain suddenly became heavier, she bit her lip, unable to control herself. Beside her ear was his low murmur, "Don't be so nervous, Justin." The words she wanted to say were shattered by the fierce rain. The shadows of the trees swayed. The rain seemed to grow louder again. This rainy night was destined to last for a long time. After waking up, she propped herself up and looked at the mess in front of her. She almost wanted to run away in a panic. Justin came out of the kitchen, his eyes lonely. "Are you leaving?" She froze on the spot, not knowing how to face it. "It's okay," Justin lowered his eyes. "It was just 2 hours." He turned around. "If you want to leave, just go." She stayed and silently ate breakfast but still didn't dare to look up at Justin. As long as she met those eyes, she could immediately recall the harsh words she had said to Justin back then. She didn't speak and Justin didn't say anything either. He sent her to the studio and then left. Before leaving, he said softly, "I'm preparing dinner for tonight. It might be a bit troublesome. It doesn't matter if you don't want to come." She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Justin had already driven away. She couldn't refuse Justin after he came back, nor did she want to. She lowered her eyes and thought silently that she would be content even if she only had these brief moments for now. After angering Kane, he moved extremely fast. He intercepted all my brand collaborations and declared that I would bow my head and beg for reconciliation within a month. I had expected that Kane wouldn't let me have an easy time, but I didn't expect it to be this difficult. Kane wanted me to give in. I was being smeared all over the internet, hitting walls everywhere. The roles I had auditioned for successfully were replaced. Even so, my agent Sally had no intention of leaving me. I looked at Sally. This period of time might be a bit tough. Sally didn't say anything. She just handed me a pile of materials. "No matter how tough it is, there will always be an end. Luna, you won't stop here." Even though Kane's reach was long, he couldn't cover the sky with one hand. As long as it was a role that I could take, I could complete it to the best of my ability by relying on myself. Kane couldn't hold me back. Justin would always pick me up and take me home for dinner in the evening. He never brought up past events. This period of time was so calm that it seemed as if we had gone back to the very beginning when we first met. Unlike how easygoing he was during the day, he was especially persistent at night. He liked to gently bite my earlobe and repeatedly ask me to speak during our intimacy. "What do you want?" "Luna, say it yourself." She looked up at him uncomfortably, but couldn't say a complete sentence. But Justin was very patient. His fingertips slowly stroked her neck. He just had to wait for her to speak. On the boundless sea, the lonely boat was at the mercy of the waves, rising and falling. Unable to break free or get rid of it, during the period after the divorce, Kane never gave Vivian an identity. Sally showed me a video. The background was dim, like it was in a bar. Vivian was crying pitifully, choking back sobs and asking Kane, "Now that you're divorced, why can't you give me a place by your side?" Kane just smiled. What's your identity? This place is taken. Kane touched the ring in his hand, extremely certain. Luna will come back. She couldn't help but laugh sarcastically. Kane was still waiting for her to come back. So he was always keeping an eye on her every move. Whenever she got in touch with something, he would come and mess it up. After failing many auditions, finally someone couldn't help but say, "It's not that you don't meet our requirements. It's just that Mr. Yu over there." Miss Sue, don't be angry with Mr. Yu anymore. Admit your mistake and show a bit of weakness. Wouldn't the difficult situation be easily solved then? I laughed out loud. Admit my mistake? What mistake have I made? Leaving Kane is the thing I've never regretted. As soon as I finished speaking, there was a snap sound. The sound of something breaking came from behind me. I looked over curiously. The door behind me slowly opened. Behind the door, Kane's extremely gloomy face appeared. His eyes were fixed on me, and his smile turned cold. Luna. What did you say? Kane had never thought that I would leave him. So he had been waiting for me to back down when faced with difficulties and go back to beg him. But he waited for a long time and it never happened. Kane gradually felt that something was slipping out of his control. So he intensified his efforts and used all kinds of means, trying to trap me. But unfortunately, he never got the result he wanted. So he showed up here, wanting to hear what I had to say in person. But he didn't expect to hear such a result. Kane got angry. Everyone tactfully pushed the door open and walked out. I was just about to leave when he grabbed my wrist. He looked up at me and said, "Have you had enough of making trouble?" I looked at him with a puzzled expression. Without me, the Luna family has already been in a mess. And you're in such a sorry state too. Kane gently lifted the end of my hair with a pitying look. Luna, don't you understand that you can't live without me? What's this? Kane's voice suddenly rose at the end. His eyes fell on my neck, and his whole face suddenly became extremely ugly. I touched my neck. Before going out, I deliberately chose a turtleneck sweater to cover the marks from last night, but obviously it didn't cover them very well. Kane went crazy when he saw the hickey. He tightened his grip on my fingers, suppressing his anger as he said, "Luna, what's this?" Kane, let go. The pain in my wrist spread. I couldn't break free, so I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. I used a lot of force, and my fingertips felt a bit numb. Kane's head was turned aside by the slap, and he finally calmed down and let go. His Adam's apple moved, and he said softly, "Explain it." "I'll listen to your explanation." I reached out to straighten my collar and looked at him with a mocking smile. "What's our relationship? What do I need to explain to you, Luna?" Kane frowned. "Don't call me. Besides, the current Luna family has nothing to do with me. You don't need to use the affairs of the Luna family to threaten me. As for the means you threaten to make it impossible for me to survive in this business, do whatever you want. I'll take you on. But Kane, you can't trap me." With every word I said, Kane's face turned a bit paler. He stared at me for a long time, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. "Didn't you divorce me because of Vivian or because you were angry? From the very beginning, did you really want to leave me, Luna? Haven't you felt anything for me in all these years?" I looked up at him and said, "No, never. From the day I married you, I made it very clear." Kane shook his head and looked at me with a cold smile. "Word by word, Luna, I don't believe it." Kane started to show up around me constantly. Whenever he appeared, my auditions would be ruined again and again. He just stood aside, looking at me indifferently. Sally wanted to curse him out more than once. I shook my head and said, "Kane is the kind of person who will always seek revenge. Don't offend him because of me." Kane showed up too frequently. I subconsciously avoided Justin, not wanting to drag him into this mess. Just then, I got an offer for a role as a vicious female supporting character. It was hard to imagine that I could still get an acting job at this time. When I saw Vivian, whom I hadn't seen for a long time, parachute in as the female lead of this drama, I suddenly understood. Vivian joined the crew with the intention of making things difficult for me. But she didn't expect that this role couldn't be easily gotten through by slacking off. One scene had to be reshot by Vivian several times. Countless crew members sighed at Vivian's acting skills. Vivian was so angry that she turned her eyes on me. With such an eyesore in the crew, how can I perform well? Coincidentally, I also found her annoying. Before going out, I took a step back and looked at her. Remember to hold on tight to the position you got by relying on others. If you accidentally fall, you'll fall really hard. Vivian was furious. I could imagine her annoyance after Kane gradually lost interest in her, so she went to great lengths to target me. But how long can one rely on one's looks to maintain a position? The sunset in the evening was beautiful. I looked up. For me at present, having the opportunity to join a crew was already rare. Treating every role seriously, having a clear conscience towards others and myself was enough. It was a month later when I saw Justin again. Afraid of getting Justin into trouble, it had become my habit to turn around and leave when I saw him. But this time, Justin was quick and grabbed my wrist. Stop hiding. It was very cold, and the words he spoke were chilly. Justin didn't know how long he had been waiting at the studio entrance. His fingers were ice cold. He looked up at me, and his eyes were full of loneliness. I know you're avoiding me because of Kane. Luna, if you don't like me, I won't come to you. However, he looked at me and gave a rather bitter smile. Even after he's treated you like this, are you still going to choose him? I froze on the spot. Looking at Justin's appearance, a sharp pain suddenly stabbed my chest. Many years ago, he also stood in front of me like this, smiling and saying, "Yeah, I've never been the main character." At that time, I was really too cowardly. Under the coercion of the Luna family, I said harsh words to Justin and even admitted that I was in love with Kane. I didn't expect Justin to misunderstand like this. Before I could say anything, Justin suddenly let go. He lowered his eyes and put on a relaxed smile. I understand. You said that I'm not the main character. He smiled and nodded. It's Justin, my nose felt sour. Before he could finish speaking, I interrupted him, grabbed his collar, closed my eyes and kissed him. Justin's body stiffened. My voice was hoarse and my words were a bit vague as I said, "Justin, I love you. I've always loved you. I didn't choose Kane. I was just afraid of dragging you into trouble." Justin's eyelashes trembled slightly. But now I'm even more afraid of you leaving. I was too cowardly in the past. So we missed too much. This time, I didn't want to push away the person I liked with my own hands again. Justin's lips curved up slightly. He threaded his fingers through my hair and deepened the kiss. In days, I heard the second half of Justin's unfinished sentence. He said, "Even if I'm not the male lead, I still love you." After that day, Kane, who had always been clingy, suddenly stopped showing up. I asked Justin, "Was it you who did this?" Justin raised his hand to blow dry my hair. He looked extremely serious in the mirror. "I know you want to rely on yourself, so I haven't interfered during this period, but this time, it wasn't because of you that I took action. The Kane family has occupied resources for too long. It's time for the Justin family to get a share of the pie. So I gave them a heads up and caused a little trouble for Kane. The company affairs will be enough to give him a headache for a while." Justin didn't like to mention Kane and he quickly changed the topic. "Our great actress Luna, keep working hard. I know you've done your best as before. Don't be sad. From now on, just keep moving forward. If you're tired, I'll be here to help you at any time." And Justin was always like this, gentle and reliable. It was also at that moment that I made up my mind that I couldn't become a stain on Justin. At least for now, I didn't match up to him. In the following months, I threw myself wholeheartedly into my work. I could treat every role with the utmost seriousness. I wanted to stand beside Justin through my own efforts, but later I found out that the little trouble Justin mentioned had kept Kane busy for months, and Justin's return this time was aimed at the Kane family. Vivian, who played the female lead, was ridiculed by the public when she was on the hot search because of her poor acting skills. However, I unexpectedly became popular because the vicious female supporting character I played was so vicious and constantly going crazy. My number of fans increased by millions, and Sally was so busy dealing with the commercial brands that came to us. On New Year's Eve, Sally hugged me and was unusually sentimental. She said that she had witnessed my journey all the way. During the toughest times, Kane had made things so difficult for us that even drinking a mouthful of cold water felt like it got stuck in our teeth. Fortunately, we gritted our teeth and persisted. Fortunately, everything was gradually getting better. Sally said that she hadn't expected me to propose divorce during that live stream, but she supported it wholeheartedly. So no matter how difficult it was later, she had never planned to leave me. I felt my eyes getting red as I listened. Sally told me not to rush to wipe my tears and to explain what was going on with Justin. I was stunned for a moment. Now my eyes weren't red anymore, but my face turned red instead. Justin and I had already tried our best to avoid suspicion. Because I was always afraid that I wasn't worthy of standing with Justin at that time, I always thought that I needed to become a bit more excellent to be worthy of him, but obviously, I couldn't hide it from Sally. Sally patted my head. Anything you like is okay. But Justin is no ordinary guy. I heard that Kane has been inquiring about your news everywhere recently, but our Luna has become better now, and she has an even more excellent lover. I really want to know his expression when he hears about this. I smiled and told Sally not to mention that unpleasant person during the new year, but Kane was doomed to be an extremely unpleasant person. He came to find me. On New Year's Eve, I didn't want him to affect my mood and was ready to leave directly, but he stopped me again and again. Luna, it's already New Year's Eve. Several months have passed. How long do you plan to keep arguing with me? I put my hands in my pockets and looked at him silently. Actually, I've been waiting for you to come back and admit your mistake. Kane frowned, but you're so stubborn and just refuse to bow your head to me. You left on your own initiative for so long. Kane looked down at me. I can let bygones be bygones. Luna. Kane sighed and made a concession. As long as you say just one soft word to me now, I can forget all the past. I can also put the resources and brands you want right into your hands. I just want you to show a bit of weakness to me. Kane was serious as he spoke, and I couldn't help laughing out loud. I thought he would have changed during this period, but nothing had changed. Kane, I only want to say one sentence to you now. Kane leaned over. I said softly, get lost. Luna. Kane's face instantly darkened. I've come to you in person. What else do you want? Why do you think I'll definitely come back to you? I looked at him curiously. From the very beginning, neither you nor the Luna family ever treated me as a person. You provided resources for the Luna family, and the Luna family handed me over. Nobody ever asked about my feelings. I'm just an item in your transaction. Kane interrupted me. That's because I really liked you. I really wanted to marry you. But you never asked for my choice or gave me any respect. Kane, the so-called love you thought you had is just as cheap as you are. Kane was about to say something else when he was suddenly interrupted by Justin. Well, President Kane still has the mood to indulge in romantic affairs here. Have you dealt with the company's matters? As soon as he spoke, Kane's irritation rose sharply. It seemed that Justin had really caused a lot of trouble for Kane during this period. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Justin, asking, what are you doing here? Picking up my wife from work. As soon as these words came out, Kane suddenly became vigilant. On New Year's Eve, everyone had gone home. Kane scanned around and then, little by little, his gaze reluctantly landed on me. He watched helplessly as Justin walked over, tied my scarf for me, put my hat on properly, and then gently kissed me on the forehead. Then, Kane went crazy. Luna, who is he? He stared at me fixedly. Luna, come here. Don't stand beside him. Kane stood in the darkness, his voice trembling. Did you choose him because of Vivian? Are you just being spiteful with me? I've already broken off with Vivian. She'll never appear among us again. Luna. I raised my hand to straighten Justin's scarf and then turned around to interrupt Kane's words. Kane, do you remember that I told you I've never had feelings for you, because there's always been someone I liked very, very much. Don't say it. Kane's Adam's apple bobbed. Luna, don't say it. I held Justin's hand and looked at Kane calmly and firmly. And now, the person I like has come back. Kane was hospitalized on New Year's Eve. He was beaten by Justin. He went crazy and held onto my wrist tightly, refusing to let go. Justin punched him. After that, he pulled me to an open space, retied my scarf, and asked me to wait for him there. Then, he came back with injuries and told me that he was in pain. I tilted my head to look at Kane. He was already lying on the ground. Well, he had taken a severe beating. During the new year, Kane spent it in the hospital. He was depressed for a long time. Sally couldn't hide her smile when talking about this. When I saw Vivian again, our positions had completely reversed. I was the leading actress, a popular star. She had become an unknown supporting actress and was given the cold shoulder because of her poor performance. She was snubbed everywhere on the set. As I passed by her, I smiled at her and said to her as I did when I received her message on that rainy night before. I heard that you really wanted to get this leading role, but sorry I got it with my acting skills. Vivian was so angry that her eyes turned red, but she couldn't do anything to me. Now she had been completely abandoned by Kane, and with her own strength, it was very difficult for her to make progress. Later, her name was gradually forgotten in the entertainment circle. After Kane was discharged from the hospital, he completely changed his haughty appearance and kept sending all kinds of limited edition gifts to me. He waited downstairs with a cake for the whole night, experiencing all the things I had done before. Nobody expected that Kane, who had boasted the most harsh words before, would become so humble. Before Kane became so humble, he had approached Justin and even tried to use past events to drive a wedge between me and Justin. What did Justin say at that time? He said, "Luna suffered a great deal of grievance during the time I was away. I can't bear to blame her. I can only blame myself for not having the ability back then and not being able to see things clearly. Love often means feeling indebted. Kane, a selfish person like you may never be able to understand." At that time, I stood beside Justin and couldn't stop crying. In the end, even though it was my fault, Justin coaxed me for a long time. The doorway was piled up with Kane's gifts. Justin quietly looked at the gifts sent by Kane and asked me, "What should we do with them?" Before I could say anything, he looked away again. "If you like these gifts and want to keep them, it's okay. I won't mind." I smiled slightly. "Justin, try to be a bit more sarcastic." Justin seemed gentle, well-behaved, and understanding on the surface. In fact, not even a single ribbon from those gift boxes was left. Those who had been waiting for me to go back to Kane in the end didn't get the result they expected. Instead, they got the news of my engagement to Justin. The day after the news of the engagement came out, it rained heavily. When Kane heard the news, he drove like a madman in the heavy rain and rushed over. He was soaked through and stood at the doorway, knocking carefully. "Luna, is the news of the engagement true? Luna, are you angry with me? I went to Vivian just to make you care about me. I just wanted you to have at least some feelings for me. I just wanted you to try to love me. I didn't know how to love before. Luna, could you please give me another chance?" Kane poured out his heart with a lot of words, but I didn't hear them on the spot, because that bastard Justin kept me occupied for hours. At that time, I was extremely sleepy. Kane said a lot of words densely. When the door opened, it was Justin's face that appeared. He leaned against the doorway, with a seemingly kind smile in his eyes. "Ex-husband, you still have the habit of eavesdropping. But unfortunately, my wife is tired and can't hear you. By the way, instead of drooling over someone else's wife here, you'd better go home and check on your own company. It seems it won't last long." Rarely, Kane didn't refute. He looked at Justin with red eyes and said softly, "Could you let me see Luna for a moment?" Before he could finish his words, Justin mercilessly shut the door on him. The wedding with Justin was extremely grand. Coincidentally, on that day, the Luna family was on the verge of collapse, and the Kane family went bankrupt directly. Kane had a car accident on his way to the wedding. Hearing the news, Justin smiled with narrowed eyes. He stroked his chin and sighed, "How come all the good things happen on the same day?" All day long, Justin was in an exceptionally good mood. In the evening, his mood was even better. His warm and ambiguous breath was close to my ear. Justin twirled a piece of cloth that came from nowhere with his fingers and slowly wrapped it around my wrist. He said pitifully and innocently, "Could we, tonight?" Seeing the cloth in his hand, I suddenly had a bad feeling. Justin, this guy, was getting more and more playful recently. I was busy shaking my head. Before I could speak, he nodded again. I understand. It's okay if you don't agree. Just that my wife promised that she would agree on our wedding day. But it's okay if you don't want to. Justin obediently and sensibly leaned over and kissed me. It's really okay. I was so dazzled by his good looks that I nodded in agreement. The night was long. I regretted it several times. But I didn't even have a chance to say a complete sentence.